Jovan wanted to know, to you, Matt, if like God could have created a universe with like a different speed of light, or gravity having a different formula, or something like that. That was the question.
There's kind of like two arguments going on, one about fine tuning and one about abiogenesis.
Yeah.
Well, the question applies to both.
Wait, Matt is arguing for those?
Kinda.
Well, he's doing like an amalgamation of both.
But how is he arguing for them?
He said like there are physicists who made an equation that shows that the likelihood that the universe were to exist would be extremely low. Or, oh my bad, that life were to come to be through natural processes is extremely low.
Right, it's probably quoting Roger
Wait,
Penrose about the
why
low
would it
entropy of
be?
the early universe.
Why would it be more probable on theism?
We asked that. So John at first, well, Matt at first. What did I do?
I
did that too. Matt at first was
mentioned quite a few mathematical calculations, not just life beginning from proteins and amino acids randomly, but also the whole evolutionary process. There have been multiple attempts for mathematical equations, and whether they know or who knows how they come up with them, I really don't know. But the probabilities are so high. I was just simply saying, or so astronomical. I was just saying that if you're an atheist, then wouldn't that, and you're open, wouldn't that imply that you should be skeptical of a naturalistic explanation based on that?
How's it
And
random?
well, to be clear, man. At first, that's what I pushed you towards. At first, you
yeah,
were
you
saying
said
that
that
this
would
is
be the
obviously more
better
likely that a
approach.
miracle.
Right,
Yeah, you kept saying it's more likely it's a miracle, right? And I said you shouldn't reference a god or anything. You should
right.
just try to show
I
skepticism
Well,
can
we
say
agreed.
I'm
We
about.
an
agreed with
atheist.
supernatural, right?
I could say I'm an
But
atheist and
skepticism,
I'm not open, and
skepticism,
the probability, but I still doesn't bring me anywhere near supernaturalism.
skepticism implies that we ought to think that a non-naturalistic explanation is more likely. Is that right?
Well, that's
No, Jovan and I agreed.
That's what
I
Matt was
wasn't.
pushing
We
for.
agreed to just
And I was
saying that.
saying no. Well, I was saying to Matt that it would be better if he stopped trying to like say that it's more likely that the God exists, and just say, well, this just shows that you should just like put some like uncertainty there. That's well, I don't say I agree with the argument, obviously, but I'm saying that he should argue that more. It's just like some uncertainty there. Like maybe it should make you doubt it.
So
Well,
rather
obviously,
than saying it's evidence for God, just saying it's evidence against naturalism.
and the implication there is going to be that there's like the supernatural.
It would be
if it's
a
evidence
supernatural
against,
option.
wait, if it's evidence against naturalism, that means that it's evidence in favor of supernaturalism. But I'm just not seeing.
No, it doesn't, Jack. Come on, you agree with the arguments against naturalism,
if
but
supernaturalism,
that
why is John over talking me? If supernaturalism and naturalism are taken to be contradictories, right? If they exhaust the logical space, then anything that is evidence against naturalism is evidence for supernaturalism.
Of course it isn't, Jack.
That's
Come on.
Sorry, I don't know why you're talking.
Because you're speaking nonsense.
Is that sorry? I don't know why you're talking. So is that how you're understanding it, Matt?
Let me finish chewing.
Jack, you yourself said that you agree with the arguments against naturalism. That doesn't lead you to supernaturalism, sir.
Jack, do you know why you're talking?
I was asking if Matt understands supernaturalism to exhaust the logical space with naturalism.
Technically, Jack is like a supernaturalist if you think that that's like the contraposition.
What I had said was earlier on we were talking about something. Why is there something rather than nothing? And Jacob had brought up that we were close to showing that life could have began under lab conditions. And I said I started talking about the mathematical improbability that I thought was a good argument against naturalistic explanations. And I said that it would increase the probability that God exists. It seems like to me, but Jovan was saying you shouldn't argue it like that. You should just simply say it should make naturalism more skeptical. And I said, well, then what would that imply?
Well, no, just to,
that imply?
just to be clear, man, I'm just saying, like, just to like try to like, I was just trying to give you like debate tactics, right? I was just trying to say, hey, this is how you should go against the person.
So, and
just
I said,
like,
well, wouldn't that imply
because as soon as you mention
a supernatural explanation of some kind? And you said, yeah, that would be obvious or something like that. And I'm just saying, and I'm saying, if you were an atheist and you were open-minded and you were saying, hey, I don't know here. I'm looking for evidence for God, or I'm looking for evidence that refutes my position, then that would be one that it seems like to me would at least you should at least acknowledge that mathematically I should be skeptical of naturalism. And that was basically what I was saying. Yeah, and if you're skeptical of naturalism, then you should be open. That should increase the likelihood you would be more open to the possibility that there is some sort of supernatural explanation behind it. And God would be included in that category.
I'm just trying to understand, is there a claim that a supernatural explanation is more likely?
No, I actually didn't make a claim. I just said that the person should be skeptical.
That was your initial claim, Matt. That was your initial claim, Matt.
Well, remember? I said if the atheist would have.
You said it shows. You said it gives evidence for it being a miracle.
Well, that's actually what I said that's what William Lane Craig said in that debate against Christopher Hitchens. He used Barrow and Tipler's formulation. Well, no, I don't even think evolution is true. So, but he was Christopher Hitchens brought up evolution, and that the 6-day creation was wrong scientifically. William Lane Craig responded by quoting a theologian from like 500 years or so before Darwin, who basically said you need not take it as a literal 4 or 5, 6-day creation, but that God kind of rolled it out in a process. And then he started quoting Barrow and Tipler, who identified like 7 different things that would have been needed for evolution to happen, and they calculated it somehow mathematically. And he listed out that number and said that it would be so improbable that it would be by mathematically a miracle and therefore evidence for God. So he actually used the improbability of evolution from a naturalistic explanation as actually evidence for God, because it would be a supernatural process, and that's how he argued it. That was William Lane Craig.
What does all this bullshit mean?
But I'm just trying to understand: is the claim?
I think it's a good argument.
Wait, so you're saying that it's more probable that there's a theistic explanation than an atheistic explanation?
Yeah, I'm saying that if you hold to the theory of evolution and you believe that that's true, then it seems like to me that would actually not decrease the likelihood of God, but would actually increase the likelihood of God.
Yeah, if you eliminate the possibility of naturalism.
What I'm not understanding is, how is it that theism makes those things more probable?
Well, the reason it would make it more probable, according to William Lane Craig, would be that a unguided process would be more unlikely, but a guided process would be likely to ensure everything come together the way it was supposed to.
No, but what I'm saying is, what's the outcome that we're trying to explain? What's the observation?
I don't really know. I mean, I don't know what you mean by that.
You're saying that you're saying there's something that's hard to explain on naturalism. What is that?
I don't think it's necessarily whether it's hard to explain. It's the mathematical. Maybe it's hard to explain the mathematical improbability of it.
What's the phenomenon that's improbable on the view?
What do you mean phenomenon? The whole process
being random.
The whole process. Well, they actually identified like
it's abiogenesis. That's the thing they're trying to explain.
Actually, in this debate, it wasn't necessarily abiogenesis. He was talking about evolution here. That's why I'm saying It's not just that there's mathematical. I've read
No,
these
you said the
so-called
mathematical
calculations
argument
and
was against abiogenesis, right? We're talking about protein.
abiogenesis and evolution, both.
All right,
It's
well,
not just one or
there
the
you go,
other.
Jack.
It's both.
Those are the two phenomena:
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's just
abiogenesis and
take
and they're
mathematics.
separate. They're not
They're
necessarily the same.
completely separate things.
let's just take abiogenesis as a datum, right? I'm not understanding why theism makes the existence, well, not abiogenesis, the existence of life, rather, right? So I'm not understanding why theism makes the existence of life more probable than there being some abiogenetic explanation. That's what I'm trying to understand. Because it seems to me that theism doesn't predict.
Well, it would be God would be kind of ensuring the perfect conditions for it to happen. I guess that would kind of be like
You're
a
not understanding.
fine-tuning type thing.
No, you're not understanding. The problem is that I don't see why, if a God exists, that means that he has more of an inclination to create life than not. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Oh, you're saying if God exists, why God would even want to create life? That seems like a different question.
Why would
That
that
seems
be more likely than
different.
Yeah, that would depend upon God's nature.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is I don't see how theism, right, raises the probability of the existence of life. That's what I'm not understanding.
Well, would you agree that
I think what
the
Matt was
mathematical
arguing, Jack, was that
improbabilities of
eliminating
naturalism would
naturalism
make you
increases the
skeptical
probability of
of
theism, is
naturalism?
what he's saying.
John, you
Well, I don't think
denied
so,
that.
because it sounds like you have
No.
no more. It sounds like life is no more probable on naturalism than it is on whatever is the contrary of naturalism.
Yeah, and there's more than one thing contrary to naturalism, all of
And
which
so,
get
given that,
elevated in
why does
probability.
John keep talking? I just don't understand it. You don't hear me, John? So, since it doesn't seem like you're offering a consideration to favor one over the other, then it just seems like by appeal to ontological economy alone, we'd have a reason to favor naturalism, right? And then it seems to me that
What is ontological economy?
meaning that we don't have to postulate an entity of some radically different kind than we're acquainted with in order to explain something.
Right? So you would just say you're skeptical of naturalism at that, and
No,
that's it.
I'm saying that we have reasons to favor. That would be an example of a reason to favor naturalism over non-naturalism.
Well, mathematically, are you skeptical of naturalism or not?
What?
Based on the mathematical formulas of the improbability, are you skeptical of naturalism or not?
Wait, are you understanding naturalism to just mean something non-supernatural?
Yeah, that we are here by just random, unguided natural processes.
Yeah, so I'm not skeptical of that. No.
Okay, now, but even with the
I don't think those
unlikelihood, you just don't.
I don't think
those
equations provide. I don't think those equations provide a basis for us to be skeptical of naturalism.
Why not?
They might provide a basis for us.
Yeah, he's skeptical of naturalism for
why.
other reasons, man.
I just told you why. Because
is it true you're 4 feet tall?
Who is this? Is this e-bike?
Why do you think it's random and unguided?
Wait, I mean, I'm gonna be a mod in here.
Oh yeah, I already moved him down. Yeah.
Yeah. So is there, since you're not providing a reason to favor supernaturalism over non-naturalism, over naturalism, then it seems like all you're doing is offering a consideration to favor, to reduce, one's belief that naturalism is much more likely, right? But that doesn't mean that we should believe that it's still not more likely.
He's just criticizing naturalism, that we ought to be skeptical of naturalism. That's what basically, that doesn't imply theism, because it implies non-naturalism, of which theism is a part of, sure.
No, if you were just going from a mathematical probability, would you admit that just purely from a mathematical probability that you should be skeptical of naturalism?
No.
Why not?
Because you're not showing that the alternative is more likely, right?
Well, I mean,
So
yeah, but
the
I'm not
question
saying
is,
you would need an alternative. You
so
just have to be
at best you
skeptical
would,
of naturalism. Because Jovan said we didn't need to provide an alternative.
Well, I think the
You could
word.
be
Wait, maybe the
skeptical of
word
naturalism.
there. Maybe the word there you should be using is agnostic towards it, because skepticism implies like some doubt towards it, right? As opposed to
Well,
just like not
wouldn't
accepting it.
agnosticism imply the possibility of doubt? I mean, I
Well,
don't
the
know.
point
Maybe
the
it
point there
doesn't.
is like the skeptic might well, you might imply like you're actually doubting it because of that, and it's as opposed to just not accepting it now.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
guess
the
that's a
numbers refer to
consideration.
matter about the origin of the likelihood of that way that's the way it
Yeah,
originated.
that's a consideration in favor of agnosticism, right? But then if we bring in other explanatory virtues, we're going to have reasons to reject supernatural explanations.
I mean, it seems to me that if you value mathematics, and if someone were to come up with some formula, now maybe you could just say that they don't know enough about it to really come up with these formulas to evaluate the likelihood that naturalism could have taken place purely from a mathematical standpoint, then you would at least would have to increase your skepticism of naturalism, right?
Yeah, so Matt,
Why?
do you
Matt,
understand what it is that I'm saying?
It seems like you're just simply saying you just don't even consider the mathematical considerations.
No, what I'm saying is that at best, what the mathematical considerations show, right, is that there's nothing more likely about there being life, right, on naturalism than there is on what we're calling supernaturalism, because neither predicts the existence of life.
Well, I would definitely say
And that's
that
best case
I would
scenario
agree
for you.
that naturalism wouldn't predict life based mathematically. I just don't even know if it would even be necessary to even get into talking about God. If you're just skeptical of it mathematically speaking, yeah, sure, maybe there's other things that increase the probability. But if you at least are willing to admit that it's improbable from a mathematical standpoint, then I think that would show you're at least open-minded, right?
So
What
let's
I'm
just get the
saying is,
But if you're
language.
not willing to admit that, I would question your
Matt, if you
open-mindedness.
won the lottery, should I be skeptical that you won the lottery based on the probability?
I don't know.
Well,
I
that's
probably
what you're
would
saying.
be.
That's what
I
you're
would
saying.
actually probably be skeptical if somebody said they won the lottery.
Yeah, so if
I
you
probably
won the,
actually
if you
would
Remember,
won
be.
the
Matt, when I
lottery
gave you
said,
an even
I
higher
don't
number of
believe you.
probability?
Oh my God.
yeah, but
If you
what
won the
I'm not.
lottery and I said, I don't believe you because the odds are so low, that would be a dumb thing to say, wouldn't it? Someone has to win.
Well,
Matt,
what I'm
is
saying.
is
Yeah,
evolution
but this is
random and
far more than
unguided?
just a lottery.
You're talking
Yeah,
about
but
Hayden.
I'm
probability.
just trying.
This is vastly
No, but
higher in
the point
likelihood.
is, I don't think you're understanding the criticism, right? What I'm saying is, you've offered no consideration to suggest that life would be more likely on, let's call it theism, than on atheism, right?
No, he's saying that life would be more likely under non-naturalism.
No, because I asked him what non-naturalism
Yeah,
meant.
from some other explanation besides naturalism.
He's
It would be
actually
more
been
likely.
saying that
Yeah.
the whole time, and people are trying to
Yeah, I
shoehorn
asked him what
theism into this.
naturalism meant. I asked him what naturalism meant, and he said that life would arise by an unguided process.
And what John just said is not true. First of all, the conversation started with Matt.
Yeah. No,
Well,
Matt,
it's been going
John is
on since
just
I've been
trying
having the conversation with Jag. Ever since me and Jovan had said you should not talk about the increased likelihood of God, it's just more likely not a naturalistic explanation, but there's something supernatural or something non-natural. And I would agree with that. So if we're just going purely on critiquing someone's position and say, well, what about this mathematical improbability? Does that make you skeptical just
But
purely
here's
on
the problem,
mathematical
Matt. There was a lottery winner.
consideration?
Wait.
There was a lottery winner, right?
No. So
Look,
why
let's just
that's a
not get
bad
lost in the
analogy about the
Yeah, the
not get
lottery
lost in
is
the
so
weeds here.
far off. It
It's
But
a
wouldn't
everybody
bad
just
be.
calm
analogy
down.
because
One
it
second. Let
proves
Jack
that
talk. Let Jack talk,
hypotheses
please.
are
Just let
involved
Jack
So yeah,
talk.
by
I'm
Let
just
John,
saying.
let Jack talk.
I'm saying, right. You're not offering a consideration, right, that counts in favor of life being produced by an intelligence over that of a non-intelligence, because an intelligence doesn't create a predictive expectation of life any more than non-intelligence does. So all you're offering is at best to show that in terms of predictive expectations, the two hypotheses are on a par, right? And so what
Well,
I'm
I
saying
wouldn't even
is
have to include another hypothesis. I could just say that your hypothesis offers no predictive power,
they
right?
exhaust the logical space.
Well,
The
All
two
Matt was saying
hypotheses,
is based upon the math,
the two.
one ought to
Why
be
is John
skeptical
talking?
exactly. That's
of
all I'm saying.
naturalism.
The two hypotheses exhaust the logical space. Do you understand that?
Yeah, but that's usually not how these conversations go, Jack. I mean, it's not
On your
like
view, right?
it's not like when
You agree.
it's not like when you guys criticize John that you offer an alternative to John's position.
Doesn't
You
matter.
just
Can you
criticize
You
stay out
John.
of the
agree.
meta?
So
That's
You
exactly what's
agree.
going
I'm
on,
just
Matt.
simply
Why
saying
is John talking?
I would
You
just
agree that the
criticize your
two.
position mathematically speaking.
Look, you agree that the two hypotheses exhaust the logical space, right?
I don't even know what that means, but
No,
sure.
the answer is probably no.
What I mean is
No,
that
the answer is yes.
either life was produced by an intelligence or it wasn't, right?
No, that's not the dichotomy proposes.
I'm not. Look, John. Just stop. I'm asking
I
Matt a
don't even
question.
know if I'm proposing a dichotomy here.
I'm asking
I'm
you.
just proposing.
Is it the
I'm just
case?
proposing.
Is it the case? Listen to the question. Is it the case that life is either produced by an intelligence or not?
Yes, that would be the case.
Okay. Now, so what I'm saying is that at best you're offering a consideration such that, right, for life to be produced is no more likely than unlikely.
What happened to Jack?
You got extremely
Yeah,
quiet,
something
Jack,
happened.
there at the
Sorry.
end.
What I'm
Jack,
saying is
come
you've
on,
offered
man.
a consideration. You've offered no more of a consideration that if there is an intelligence, life is no more likely than non-likely, right? And if there is no intelligence, life is no more likely than unlikely, right? So you're not showing that any outcome is more likely than any other on either hypothesis.
Well, why would I
Actually,
need to show that?
yeah, actually, with regard to
I'm
that,
just saying that's all that you've shown,
Now,
right?
would you agree, though,
Now,
that I've successfully shown that mathematically speaking, naturalism is
listen,
improbable?
If you
what you were
assume
arguing,
the
they're
argument,
trying to
the
second guess
argument's
you,
correct,
man.
is what he's saying.
I don't know why
yeah, I'm saying, look, what your
they're trying to
what the
have you talk about
mathematical
theism.
why is John talking? What I'm saying is that all the mathematical considerations can show is that one ought to be agnostic, right? Given the mathematical considerations about whether life was produced by an intelligence or not.
He's not
Right?
talking about that,
Because
Jack.
why do you keep talking? It doesn't show anything more than that. Do you grant that, Matt?
Sure. If
Okay.
I
So
just,
now what I'm saying is we bring in other criteria by which to evaluate, right, the two
well, I wouldn't even say I
alternatives.
need to bring in more
Whether
criteria.
life was
If
produced
I
by an
got you admit that,
intelligent,
might just say,
whether
okay,
life was
let's.
produced by an intelligence or not.
Oh,
Right?
Tangelo,
And so what I'm
discuss that
saying
with Jacob
is,
and
why is
Sully.
John talking? So what I'm saying is that there's going to be other considerations that count in favor of naturalism, or what you're calling naturalism, right? Which is just the thesis that life is produced by and not produced by an intelligence versus that life is produced by an intelligence, right? And I'm saying, given those considerations, right, theistic hypotheses are going to be less likely than what you're calling naturalism.
I don't think Matt's trying to say that he's like. I don't think he's trying to posit
Thank
some
you,
testable.
Gigi.
I don't think he's trying to posit some testable hypothesis. I think he's just saying the best explanation for life
I
is
didn't say
that.
anything about a testable hypothesis. I'm agreeing that both hypotheses are untestable,
Right.
right?
So
Because
I'm just.
neither generates any predictions.
Yeah. So he's just saying that it's like.
Well, then that would be good
I think
for
he's just
me.
making an abductive.
No, what I'm saying is it's not good for you because when we look at explanatory virtues as a whole, right, what the kind of explanation that you favor flunks. So I don't think it's good for you.
I think he's just saying the best explanation for the existence of life is that there's an intelligent
He's
mind.
not even
Yeah, Jack's
saying
really
that. That's
wide.
what
Yeah,
Angelo was
and
arguing.
what is it, Godless, that what I was saying was that that's not true, because if we look at predictive expectations, the two hypotheses are at best on a par, right? And so therefore when we bring in other explanatory virtues, right, theism flunks.
Listen, Matt, all Matt is saying is based
I'm not
upon the
even
mathematical
implying theism.
considerations,
Yeah,
one ought to be skeptical of naturalistic
exactly.
explanations.
And if I
Full
can get
stop.
you to be
Full stop.
skeptical of naturalistic explanations, then what that does is takes
Okay, so
away
Matt, what is it that
your
I said? What is it that
ability
I
to
said, Matt?
accuse me of being ignorant
What is it that I
or
said,
hold
Matt?
on,
You
Jack,
try
let
to
me finish.
introduce theism and
It
intelligence,
take away
Jack.
it would take away, let me finish, John, real quick. I'm trying to get this statement out. It would take away
Matt
any of your
introduced
guys'
that, John.
ability to say, hey, you're stupid for not accepting evolution. You're stupid for not accepting abiogenesis, which is what Christians get often called ignorant and dumb. So if all we have to do is just point out some skepticism concerning the mathematical improbability of these things, then I could just rest there and say I've done my job.
But you're not skeptical about your positive claim.
The same
And we don't even
mathematics is
need to
going to
go
count.
into whataboutism.
Same
What about God? What
mathematics.
about
This is
God?
what I'm not understanding, right? Same mathematics is going to count just as skeptically in favor against your hypothesis.
Well, I could be agnostic. I mean,
if we
agnostic could do the same.
if we say, right, if somebody says I favor theism, right, I can just say, well, it's, given theism, it's highly improbable that there would be life, because there's so many other different types of worlds that a divine intelligence could produce, right? So it doesn't actually favor your hypothesis at all. It would reduce the likelihood of your hypothesis in just the same way.
I wouldn't have to push a hypothesis. That's my whole point. And let's imagine albedo. Is albedo here?
The hypothesis is
albedo.
The hypothesis that you were just saying that you
hold
have.
On, Jack. I don't think you like what I'm about to say.
The hypothesis that you were just saying you have, right, which is the one you were saying.
I never said anything about a hypothesis.
Yeah, you said that theists get criticized for being skeptical of evolution.
Correct. Yeah. And right? It gets criticized.
Yeah. And what I'm saying is that's because they have an alternative explanation for the existence of life.
And I'm saying it doesn't. Let's imagine albedo.
And what I'm saying is the same mathematical considerations that you're bringing to bear upon what you're calling naturalism count against the alternative explanation that these theists have.
Okay, so
because given the existence of a divine intelligence, right, it's extremely unlikely that there should be life.
Okay, so let's say albedo, you're having and this is just hypothetical.
So do you understand that?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I don't.
Right
no,
now,
you
so
weren't
what I'm
listening.
saying,
You weren't
what
listening,
I'm
Matt.
saying
Hold
is,
on. I
what
don't
I'm
agree
saying
with
is,
what you're
what I'm
saying. I
saying
understand
is,
what you're saying.
what I'm
and
saying
you're not
is,
saying anything that addresses my argument.
What I'm
you're
saying
running
is,
from it.
What I'm saying is that over and above those considerations, right, there are going to be explanatory virtues that further.
You don't even need to go that far,
right?
But that's a separate topic.
You're not. You're addressing
Why
something.
Is that a separate topic?
Well, let me just finish. Good God, y'all! Is it that hard for me to just get something out? If albedo is an agnostic, hypothetically speaking, and albedo rejects abiogenesis and he rejects evolution, and someone comes to him and says, "Oh, you're dumb. You should." Nobody rejects that. You should accept evolution. And albedo says, "I'm skeptical of evolution because it's so mathematically improbable that I can't accept it. Would you think that Albedo had a justification for rejecting evolution there?
Not in light of the other considerations.
But he's justified in being skeptical on mathematical considerations, right?
He might be justified to be an agnostic about it. Yeah.
And that implies skepticism, right?
Well, depending on what you mean by skepticism.
So if I've just managed in
I'd just call him a dummy.
if I've just
personally.
managed in this whole conversation to
Yeah,
point
you don't
out
understand
one
what skepticism
category
is.
in which a person has justification to be skeptical of evolution, then I feel like I've accomplished something.
Look, are you saying anything more than that life is no more expected on atheism than on theism?
I'm saying if I can,
He's not saying
I'm
that.
saying that if you're going to mock a Christian for rejecting evolution, and even an agnostic can be justified in questioning evolution on mathematical grounds, then you have no reason to mock the Christian.
But I gave grounds.
That's all this is about.
That's all it's about.
I gave grounds.
Matt's looking for some kind of vindication.
If you guys agree with that one category at the moment, then I'm good. And then you can have a conversation on Tangelo.
You're still not answering my question. Are you still not answering my question? My question is,
are we willing to agree there?
I gave grounds.
No, I'm asking, are you willing to agree with me there, Jack?
No, because I gave grounds.
On what grounds are you not willing to agree with me?
Because there are other considerations.
I'm saying just purely isolated on mathematical considerations. Would you agree?
I would agree if all that means is that theism is no more likely. That existence of life is no more likely on theism than it is on atheism.
But you would agree.
Yeah, Jack. He's just asking. No, he's just asking, Jack. If you were an ignoramus and that's all you knew, then you'd be justified, right?
Justified.
If you were Barrow and Tipler,
being skeptical,
and two physicists in their book, The
skeptical mean
Principle,
be an agnostic,
and they said there's 10 steps. I'm going to read their quote: 10 steps in course of human evolution, each so improbable that the sun would have already incinerated the earth. And their calculation was 4 to the 180th power to the 110,000th power, and 4 to the negative 360th power to the 110,000th power, which is a high astronomical number. And William Lane Craig, I mean, if they're told that to someone like William Lane Craig, and he would say, well, I'm questionable of evolution on those mathematical considerations, would he be justified in being skeptical of evolution on those mathematical considerations?
Skeptical.
What?
William Lane Craig, Albedo, me, whoever. If Barrow and Tipler showed this formula of how they come up with this and how it would have been so improbable, would they not be justified in being skeptical purely on mathematical considerations?
Well, no, I don't think. Well, so evolution is something different from abiogenesis.
Well, yeah, actually, to clarify, I actually mentioned there's formulas in which they calculated the unlikelihood of abiogenesis, the unlikelihood of evolution. I'm just simply saying a person would be justified purely on mathematical considerations to be skeptical that abiogenesis could have happened randomly without guidance, or that evolution could have happened randomly without guidance. Would you agree?
Well, I mean, you're saying apart from the evidence for universal common ancestry?
Yeah, I'm just saying just on mathematical grounds that the process of how it could have happened without any guidance.
I don't understand why there's anything improbable about evolution.
So yeah, you accept evolution. You accept evolution because of other considerations, right?
Well,
even though mathematically it decreases the likelihood. Naturally,
I don't understand how there's anything improbable about evolution, right? But I could see somebody arguing that there's something improbable about abiogenesis, right? You might say that given what we know, we don't really understand why, given a certain set of antecedent conditions, life would arise. So it could be that that's highly improbable. right? That it seems
Well,
to me
that would
that's
be
just,
all I'm trying to point out here. That
yeah, but what I'm saying is
if
I don't see
someone just
why
had
that.
one
What I'm saying is
consideration,
I don't see why that argument is special to naturalism, right? The same improbability is going to
well,
apply to theism
I think
as
that
well.
would be a different topic than what I'm just trying to say here.
No, because what I'm saying is you're saying nothing more than the existence of life is improbable on either
And you
theism or
would
atheism.
agree, right?
Well, I'm prepared to agree to that.
I mean, just
I'm
purely on
skeptical.
mathematical. Now, you could say, look, on mathematical considerations, I think that evolution and abiogenesis is so improbable that mathematically speaking, it looks like it could have never happened. And I'm
Based on
skeptical.
what?
But
Based on
I
what?
just gave you a quote from Barrow and Tipler. I don't know how they come up with this. They considered,
Yeah, but
according to
again,
this, they considered 10
And they're
steps in the
anti-theistic.
course in the 10 steps in the course of human evolution.
yeah, but
And
look,
that's just human
But that's
evolution.
evolution and not
That's not.
abiogenesis,
Well,
but
would you
look.
like me
which
to
now
give
you're
you a quote?
switching back and forth.
Yeah,
Would
but
you
see,
like
I
me to
just
give
don't.
a quote on
No,
abiogenesis
it's not.
as well?
It's not important, right? The point is,
Okay.
you're not saying anything more than that life is unlikely on either theism or atheism.
Okay, so if the Christian were to say, mathematically speaking, evolution and abiogenesis is so improbable, I can't accept it on mathematical grounds, consideration, would you say they were being illogical or irrational?
I'm not saying. Well, I don't see any reason to think that that's true of evolution. But as I said, you could say that there's a reason to think that about abiogenesis.
Well, I mean,
but I
the
don't
one
see.
quote was
I don't see how
human
those
evolution.
mathematical considerations. I don't see how those mathematical considerations would count in any way in favor of theism.
Okay, well, you wouldn't even have to
They'd
say
be,
it counts in favor of theism. I'm just, if you're
yeah, you
just
could
willing
say
to
you could
say
say
it,
you could say that with
it makes
respect to
evolution improbable,
abiogenesis,
or
you could say with
abiogenesis.
respect to abiogenesis, right? Life appears to be equally, the existence of life appears to be equally unlikely on theism as on atheism.
Well, you could just simply say that abiogenesis appears to be unlikely from a naturalistic explanation and stop there, right?
That's all he's been.
Mathematically
Yeah,
speaking.
exactly. Full
Yeah,
stop.
like the
Okay.
existence of life appears
Well,
unlikely on
well,
a
you wouldn't
theistic
even have to do that. You could just stop at naturalistic explanation.
Yeah, but it's
right?
interesting to point out, if you want to say life is unlikely on naturalism, it's interesting to point out that it's also unlikely
No,
on
it doesn't, Jack,
non-naturalism.
because by implication, non-naturalism probability goes higher, of which theism is a subcategory.
No,
Why
what I'm
would it
saying
be
is
higher?
it doesn't. What I'm saying is it doesn't
Why
go
would it?
higher.
Yeah, I mean,
It
what
moves
would be the
higher
other
by
alternative? If
virtue of
John Lee,
naturalism
why
is
would it be higher?
unlikely,
No,
what would be the other
doesn't
options?
go higher. What I'm saying is it can be unlikely on all hypotheses.
Now, it would take separate considerations for the likelihood of theism, but by implication of...
I'm just talking about the contrary of atheism, right?
No, we're
And what I'm saying is,
non-natural.
because there are going to be
the
some, there are
contrary of
going to be
naturalism.
some, there are going to be some atheistic hypotheses in which the existence of life is going to be likely, right?
Let
There are going
John
to be
let
others.
John tell us why non-naturalism is more likely.
No, he's just wasting. He's just going to waste our time.
It's
No,
gonna
you're
be
trying to
it's gonna
keep
be ridiculous
incorporating
though.
theism, Jack. I don't know why you're making the dichotomy theism in some way. Intelligence and dichotomy of non-intelligence.
You're not gonna change these numbskulls' minds.
I got Matt to agree to that. So
It's
the point
not
is,
even related. I know it's a diversion.
That won't
so
stick
the point
though.
is, if we just take atheism simpliciter, you could argue that life is unlikely given.
He's not even talking about atheism.
Now,
He's talking about naturalism.
And you could stop there, right?
Yeah, but now we can add, right, that if we take theism simpliciter, life is also
unbelievable. Let me steal man, Matt. He's
so
saying...
then it seems like the natural place to go, right, is to ask why we should think that if we want to explain life, it's more likely to have an atheistic than a theistic explanation.
May I steal man, Matt, please? Because people seem to... Okay.
Please,
all
John,
Matt
please.
All Matt is
More
saying
likely to have what?
given the mathematical consideration, there is justifiability to be skeptical of naturalistic processes for life. Now,
just like
hang
there
on,
is to be
I'm not
about
finished. Okay.
just like
Now
there is to be about non-naturalistic
may I finish,
explanations
please?
for life, right?
Yeah. So may I finish, please? So given that, right, there are entailments from that, of which the in the dichotomy there's naturalism and non-naturalism. Non-naturalism is not theism.
Thank you,
It may
John.
include theism, but it is not exclusive to theism. Therefore, what he's saying
you're
is
just
it
changing.
hang
I got
on.
Matt.
It
No.
raises the probability of non-naturalism.
All right. I'm removing you. I got Matt to agree. What the two hypotheses were, right? And you just keep
Correct.
insisting
Yeah.
on muddying.
Well, I mean, I
the
don't know, Jack.
conclusion that I drew.
Maybe they're not the only two hypotheses.
So what I understood naturalism to mean, right? What I understood naturalism to mean, right, was the view that there isn't a divine intelligence that creates life, right?
Correct. An unguided.
Yeah. Okay. That's right. Okay.
Process.
So we're talking about hypotheses in which life comes about because of a divine intelligence, and hypotheses where life comes about without a divine intelligence.
So you're saying,
right?
Are you saying those are the only two options available?
Yeah, those are the only two options available. Either there's a divine intelligence or not, right? And so what you're calling naturalism is that there's no divine intelligence that brings about life.
Okay, so those are the only two hypotheses, and you were willing to agree with me that on mathematical grounds, a naturalistic explanation is unlikely.
I'm agreeing.
And so my question is,
that
what
on neither hypothesis is life likely. I'm prepared to agree with that. I can grant you that for the sake of argument. On neither hypothesis, right, is there a predictive expectation that we should see life, right?
Okay, so
So I'm prepared to grant, for the sake of argument, that the number of possible theistic hypotheses in which there is life is small, right? And the number of atheistic hypotheses in which there is life, in which there would be expected to be life, is small. So on both views, right, on both hypotheses, the probability of life is low. I can grant that for the sake of argument.
Okay, so let me ask you another question. Since you're granting that for the sake of argument, and the non-naturalistic explanation, the supernatural explanation, would not fall in the category of science, would you also be willing to grant that in the category of science, in which we use the scientific method, the inductive reasoning, that life on this earth is just simply so unlikely by a naturalistic explanation?
Is so unlikely what?
It's mathematically unlikely that it could have ever happened.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I can grant that for the sake of argument.
Now, it seems like you've kind of put yourself in a position, Jack, because you know the supernatural explanation would not be dependent upon science because science is not capable of doing that, right? So what you've basically done is just admitted that naturalism is just so unnatural by a scientific explanation, right?
No, all I've agreed to, right, was that on a worldview in which there are no divine intelligences, right, life is unexpected. And I've agreed to that on the set of worldviews in which there are divine intelligences, life is unexpected, right? I can agree to that, right?
On scientific grounds, right?
Naturalistically.
I don't know what you mean by on scientific
grounds. Well, I mean, you're talking about
Naturalistically,
predictive powers and things of that nature.
No, I'm talking about. I'm saying right, that I don't see a reason to think, or you haven't presented a reason to think that life would be likely on either hypothesis. So on either hypothesis, they're unlikely.
Yeah, but haven't you put yourself in quite a predicament here because you've granted that life, mathematically speaking, is just so unlikely from a naturalistic explanation? So the obvious question, and I wouldn't even have to even
just so
put
likely
anything else up, what would be your option at that point?
Yeah, my option is what I told you, to look for to appeal to other explanatory virtues,
like maybe
right,
God.
to favor.
What is just so unlikely? Why
God
don't
is
you
just
finish
God is
that
not
sentence?
another explanatory virtue, right? Because God isn't a virtue at all, right? God is just the name for the set of hypotheses that are not atheistic, right? And
What
on
do
the
you mean
God hypothesis,
explanatory virtues?
yeah. So what I mean is considerations that count in favor or that increase the probability of one hypothesis rather than another.
So you're saying that God literally offers no explanatory power with anything. The God.
Well, you're saying it.
Obvious.
You're saying
No,
it.
I'm
You're
asking
saying
you. I'm not saying
yeah,
that.
I agree. You're saying that, and I'm agreeing with you.
No, I'm not saying that. You're saying
Oh,
that.
so
You're
wait a
just
minute. So
saying both of them are
you're saying, because I
equally
thought you
equal
agreed.
stalemates, right?
I thought you agreed that the God hypothesis does not raise the probability of theism being true because the God hypothesis doesn't of life existing, because the God hypothesis doesn't predict that we should expect to see life if God exists.
No, I'm just pretending for the sake of argument that I'm albedo. I'm just an agnostic. I don't know. And I'm just challenging your position here. It's an internal critique of your position. I'm not making any claims that God exists at the moment. But what you've done is basically just acknowledge that naturalistically speaking, naturalism is so improbable. I'm wondering where you would go.
Here's a question for you. Why would it be an interesting concession for an atheist to concede that life is unlikely on atheism, right? If it's no more likely on theism.
Oh, I would love that concession. You're the first one that I've ever had actually concede that, to be honest with you.
But I'm asking
so
you
this
why
is,
that
to me,
concession.
this is kind of a breakthrough for me because I don't think I've ever remembered. Do you ever remember anybody saying that, John?
So I'm asking you why.
Jack is not a naturalist. That's why.
What's the answer to the question, Matt?
Why it would be surprising?
Why it would be interesting?
Oh, it's interesting because I have never in my whole time having conversation with atheists have an atheist admit what you just admitted.
I'm asking you, why would it be? Why would
because
it
Jack
be
is not a naturalist.
Why would it be interesting from the point of view of Christian apologetics?
Because generally speaking, if an atheist is going to say it's so unlikely that life could have come about
With the so. You keep saying
in a naturalistic, there's unlikely that there's a naturalistic explanation for life, then obviously I would start wondering why they were an even atheist to begin with.
No,
or a naturalist.
No, you're not understanding.
And I think you're
not understanding. You're not understanding. You're not understanding. Right? So what I'm saying is this is the reason why. They're saying, look, life is unlikely on atheism. Is it more likely on theism? No. It's equally unlikely on both. So what considerations count in favor of atheism over theism?
You're going.
I don't even think
what
that
I
question
do,
would even be
what I
relevant.
do,
real quick. You're going round and round on the same
what
thing.
I
Shush.
do,
You're
what
going
I
round
do, what I do is look
All
at
you
the
do
list.
is talk and talk.
What I do is look at the list of explanatory virtues.
I'm gonna need
Who
some
is this
mods.
person who keeps
I'm
talking?
gonna need some mods.
It's Doc. It's Doc.
Can I say something in here, Jack? It might be easier for me to like spell what you're saying.
Go ahead, Albedo.
Matt, he's trying to say if all your evidences point to either one, like not any more likely, there are these other considerations that we should take into account that will give us like our answer.
Yeah,
And
I'm
Jack
wondering
is
what
saying,
those
like,
other considerations would be because Jack said there was only 2 considerations.
well, there's going to be like, I don't know,
Here,
6, 7, 8.
I'll link you to a graphic that on explanatory virtues in theism.
But he's saying like something like,
No, I'm
if
asking
we have
what's
all
the
of
other.
that, naturalism is just going to win out because it's just
I'm asking
more
what's the other
falls under more of those
explanations
virtues.
besides naturalism? Because Jack had just said that the only 2 options would be either God or
That's not an
naturalistic
explanatory virtue.
explanation. I don't know what an explanatory virtue is.
They're like the things that when we look at a theory, we think like increase the theory's probability.
Okay, so if neither naturalism or theism can increase Explanatory's
No.
power, then what
That's
would?
not.
That's my question. I don't know what.
There's a,
I honestly don't know what you guys are saying
there's
now.
a
Maybe
separation.
John Lee understands it better.
There's a
You
separation.
haven't
This whole
done anything.
conversation is nonsense. You don't have any sort of
Shush,
variables
Chris.
to work with.
Shush, Chris.
Why do I have to
There's
shush?
Because I said so.
Oh, that's not a very good
there
reason.
is
I
a
think I'm not listening.
separation between like evidences and these explanatory virtues. Explanatory virtues are much more about like abductive reasoning, like ontological economy, background information, parsimony. There's a bunch. There's like 7, 8, 9. I don't remember how many, but there's quite a few. And when we compare theories at that point, we look at which ones like fit more of those things, and then we should choose the theory that best fits those.
Sorry, I'm going to repin the link.
How does that apply to theism versus naturalism?
Sure,
though?
and that's what Jack is trying to tell you.
You can't raise the probability in favor of theism just by saying it's
both of them.
improbable.
So life
on
is just
naturalism.
improbable in both aspects. Is what you're saying.
Simplicator.
Okay.
Simplicator,
So and
life is improbable. Simplicator.
So and I had said that obviously, if you're going to the supernatural explanations, you're not going to be able to use the scientific method and things of that nature
Exactly.
to prove God. So basically, the only thing you've done
That's
is
a mark against it.
Yeah, the only thing you've done is refuted naturalism.
No,
but you've
it
not
hasn't been
refuted
refuted.
theism.
Yeah, there are
No,
no
it hasn't been
mathematical
refuted.
variables for God to
It hasn't been
for
refuted.
probability of
Nothing
God.
you've said has refuted it.
Not even close.
Because nothing you've said,
You've refuted it
for
from mathematical
consideration.
grounds.
See, it would only be refuted if the unlikelihood of life on atheism meant that it was more likely on theism. But that's not the case, right? It's equally unlikely on both, right? At least as far as any considerations you've brought.
But you would agree that those are two different categories, right? Because
They are,
naturalism,
Matt.
you talked about predicting.
I don't see why that
you
matters.
You said naturalism was refuted, right? But it couldn't be refuted by that consideration.
Math doesn't apply to theism.
Unless the unlikelihood of life on atheism counted against only atheism and not its logical contradictory.
He's not even talking about math for atheism. He's talking about naturalism.
It's like you're not listening, John. What did I just say?
You're trying to say that there's equal.
What did I just say, John? What did I just say?
You're saying that there's equal mathematical consideration for both theism and atheism.
That's not what I said. What I said is it would only count. I'll repeat what I said. It would only count as evidence against atheism, right? If it counted in favor of the contradictory of atheism.
There are no mathematical considerations being made for atheism, Jack. That's what I'm saying. Okay, the mathematical considerations are for.
We understood
naturalism,
right? We understood that when Matt was talking about naturalism, right? And I got them to clarify this multiple times, and you keep repeating the mistake, right? That what he's calling naturalism, right, just means that life wasn't produced by a divine intelligence. That is atheism.
He's talking about naturalism, Jack. You happen to ask me
questions. I
questions.
never said life wasn't produced by God.
You asked. You made you made the dichotomy of intelligence.
Sorry,
or
Matt.
not intelligence. You did, Jack.
The two hypotheses on the table, right, are whether life is produced by a divine intelligence.
No, that's
or not,
what
right?
you're trying to frame. That was
I'm not asking
what Matt
you.
was trying to frame.
I'm not asking you.
Yeah, according to what you said, the only two options are naturalism and theism, right?
So the mathematical considerations you've brought to bear don't favor one over the other, right?
Well, I think what you've done is made a category error here.
Jack,
you're implying that God would be the same category as nature, and that's where your mistake is.
I'm asking whether the mathematical considerations you've brought to bear favor one over the other.
There are no mathematical considerations for theism, sir.
Why does John keep talking?
Considerations for
Can somebody remove John from the stage? This fucking piece of shit.
Well, I mean, I think John's right here. Like I gotta say, we don't use the scientific method and all this to
I
prove God. But we do naturalism,
I asked
right?
you whether you were saying, right, that atheism was unlikely. Sorry, that the existence of life was unlikely on atheism, right? That's what you're saying, right?
No, naturalism, naturalistic explanation.
No, he's not.
What's the distinction?
I thought by naturalism you meant that life was not produced by a divine intelligence.
No.
I didn't know that naturalism implied atheism, but if that's what you're saying, if naturalism
does not imply atheism, Matt.
Yeah, I didn't think it did. I'm just saying that.
So we'll never hear you imply that again.
Mathematically speaking, the likelihood of life coming by naturalistic explanations without a supernatural divine or intervention or in some sort of intelligence was so astronomically high that it would be on par. It would be even more unlikely than a miracle. And that's why William Lane Craig said it would be evidence for God.
Without a divine intelligence, right, is just what you mean by non-naturalism. You're saying it's unlikely.
No.
It's unlikely for there to be life without a divine intelligence.
That's what Otacho
was
arguing earlier in this room.
It's divine intelligence is required. Yeah. But what I'm saying
divine intelligence is required.
By your
take out
own
a divine
admission,
intelligence. Take out a divine intelligence, right? And it's very unlikely, right?
Yeah. Take out God, it would be unlikely.
Now what I'm asking is, put in a divine intelligence, right? What makes it more likely?
Well, scientifically speaking, it wouldn't. You wouldn't. It was you're saying.
I didn't say anything about scientifically.
You said predictive powers and things and hypotheses.
Yeah, predictive power doesn't mean anything about
science.
Those
are scientific things.
Doesn't mean anything about science, right?
And
mathematics. I'm asking how. Here's my question: how does the existence of divine intelligence? I'm asking how the existence of. I'm asking.
I can answer that.
I don't want to go to that.
I'm asking. I'm asking. How does the existence of a divine intelligence make it any more likely?
Well, I'm going to defer to John, but I just wanted to clarify what you said a while ago. You said that both of them are unlikely, right?
I'm saying that life. And I'm saying that the only thing that you've brought to the table at best suggests that life is unlikely on both hypotheses.
And you're agreeing that life is unlikely under naturalistic hypothesis. Mathematically speaking. Okay.
Just as I agree, now, I'm prepared to agree that it's unlikely under a non-naturalistic hypothesis.
And you would agree that there would be a different process. It's not like this. It's not like we would use the same process that people try to use to look for naturalistic explanations to look for God, right? I mean, we don't think we can put God under a microscope. Is what I'm saying.
If you mean that supernatural explanations can't be investigated using
or out of the realm of science.
Method. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, so basically what I'm saying is the only thing you've managed to do is just admit that naturalism is life coming from a naturalistic explanation is unlikely. But you've not done anything to refute the theistic explanation.
I've done nothing to favor theism over atheism, right? Or theistic explanations over atheism. I've conceded that the existence of life is improbable on both, right? And so now, if I want to figure out whether a theistic explanation or a naturalistic explanation is more likely to hold, I have to appeal to other explanatory virtues. And so if you look in the link that I've pinned, you'll see why theism flunks.
Okay, well, that would be a conversation you could have with John now.
There's no reason to have a conversation.
Oh, you kicked John.
There's no reason to have a conversation.
John is not available.
Oh, well, John was going to explain why.
No, he wasn't. He was just going to bloviate is what he was going to do.
And I don't really have any intentions of explaining why God is more likely, but John was going to.
No, he wasn't.
John still can.
There is no reason to think God is more likely.
All he has to do is put his hand up.
In fact, what I'm saying is it's less.
If he doesn't want to, if he doesn't want to put his hand up and explain, that's on him.
But he wouldn't do it anyway.